After the Revolutionary War, the United States was a group of 13 very independent states. Their first attempt at a national government was called the Articles of Confederation. Think of it like a very loose friendship agreement. The central government they created was intentionally weak because the colonists were terrified of replacing a powerful king with a powerful central government. The problem? This national government couldn't collect taxes. So it had no money and it couldn't force states to follow its laws. The weakness of the Articles became terrifyingly clear during an event called Shays' Rebellion. In Massachusetts, poor farmers, many of them war veterans, were losing their land because they couldn't pay high state taxes and debts. Daniel Shays led an armed revolt. The government couldn't raise an army to stop them, and chaos broke out. This rebellion was the ultimate proof that the Articles were failing. The nation couldn't even keep order. Leaders realized they needed a government strong enough to actually govern. So, in 1787, delegates from 12 states met in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. They were supposed to just fix the Articles, but almost immediately they decided the document was beyond repair. They kept the doors and windows locked and swore an oath of secrecy to create an entirely new plan for government. The room was full of brilliant minds, and they knew they were writing a document that would define the nation's future. George Washington was chosen to lead the proceedings. The first big fight was over how states would be represented in the new legislature. Large states, like Virginia, wanted the Virginia Plan, representation based on population, which would give them more votes. Small states, like New Jersey, demanded the New Jersey Plan, equal representation for every state to ensure their voices weren't swallowed up. The solution was the Great Compromise, which blended both ideas into a two-house legislature. The Great Compromise resulted in our modern Congress, which is bicameral, meaning it has two houses. The first house is the House of Representatives, where the number of representatives a state gets is based on its population, just like the Virginia Plan wanted. The second house is the Senate, where every single state, no matter how big or small, gets 2 senators, just like the New Jersey Plan wanted. It was a brilliant solution that made both sides feel heard. Another major and much darker compromise involved slavery. Southern states wanted to count enslaved people in their population to get more representatives in the House. Even though those enslaved people had no rights, Northern states disagreed. They settled on the 3/5 compromise. For the purpose of representation and taxation, every 5 enslaved individuals would count as 3 free people. This gave the South disproportionate power, cementing slavery into the political foundation of the new republic. Before diving into the government structure, the framers wrote a powerful introduction called the Preamble. It famously begins with the words, "We the people." This was a revolutionary statement. It meant that the government's power did not come from a king or god, but directly from the citizens themselves. The preamble then listed the 6 clear goals for the new government, such as establishing justice, ensuring peace, and protecting liberty. To ensure the new government didn't become a tyranny like the one they fought against, the framers adopted the idea of separation of powers from Enlightenment thinkers. They divided the entire authority of the government into 3 separate independent branches. Think of it like a car. You need a driver, the executive, a map reader, the legislative, and someone to check the engine, the judicial. Each branch has a distinct role and job to do. The first branch, described in the Constitution, is the legislative branch, which is also known as Congress. It is housed in the Capitol building. Its fundamental job is to make the laws. This branch holds some of the most crucial powers, like the power to tax citizens, to regulate trade between states, and most seriously, the power to officially declare war on another country. Next is the executive branch, headed by the President of the United States. The President's main job is to enforce the laws that Congress passes. They're like the chief executive officer of the entire country. The President holds enormous power as the commander-in-chief of the military and has the power to sign bills into law or, crucially, veto a bill they don't agree with. The third branch is the judicial branch, made up of the Supreme Court and all the lower federal courts. Their job is to interpret the laws and the Constitution itself. They ensure that laws are applied fairly, and over time, they develop the power of judicial review, meaning the Supreme Court can declare a law passed by Congress or an action taken by the President to be unconstitutional. Separation of powers isn't enough. The framers added a system of checks and balances. This system gives each branch specific powers to limit or check the actions of the other two. For instance, the President can veto a law, but Congress can override that veto with a 2/3 majority vote. This complex web of limitations is designed to prevent any one person or group from ever becoming too powerful and threatening democracy. The system of dividing power isn't just within the three branches, it's also between the different levels of government. This is called federalism. Power is shared between the powerful national federal government and the state governments. For example, only the federal government can declare war or print money, but states have the power to create schools or set marriage laws. This sharing of power ensures that local concerns are still addressed. The fight to approve or ratify the new Constitution was intense. Those who supported it were called the Federalists. Leaders like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton argued that the new system was necessary and safe because the checks and balances prevented tyranny. They wrote 85 essays called the Federalist Papers to convince the public that the Constitution was the best option for the new nation. Opposing them were the anti-federalists, who feared the new government was simply too powerful. Prominent figures like Patrick Henry argued that the Constitution took too much power away from the state governments, and, most critically, that it had no list of guaranteed rights for individual citizens. They saw a great danger in giving the government this much power, without explicitly protecting the people's freedoms. The Federalists won the ratification debate, but only by making a crucial promise. They would immediately add a Bill of Rights to the Constitution. James Madison took the lead in drafting these amendments. This promise was the necessary ingredient that convinced the anti-federalists and several critical states to approve the document. These additions, known as the Bill of Rights, became the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The very first amendment, Amendment 1, is arguably the most important. It guarantees our 5 most fundamental liberties: freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, the right to gather, freedom of the press, the media, freedom to petition the government, and freedom of speech. These core freedoms ensure that citizens can criticize the government and organize politically without fear of punishment. The next 2 amendments deal with security. Amendment 2 guarantees the right to keep and bear arms, which was initially tied to the need for state militias, citizen armies, to protect the new nation. Amendment 3 is a direct response to a grievance the colonists had with King George III, prohibiting the forced quartering of soldiers in private homes during peacetime without the owner's consent. Amendments 4, 5, and 6 deal with the rights of people accused of a crime, ensuring fairness and due process in the legal system. Amendment 4 protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures by the police. They need a warrant. Amendment 5 gives you the right to remain silent, pleading the Fifth, and prevents double jeopardy. Amendment 6 guarantees your right to a speedy public trial and the right to a lawyer. The last 2 amendments, 9 and 10, are essential for reinforcing the philosophy of the entire Constitution. Amendment 9 states that just because a right isn't specifically listed in the Constitution doesn't mean the people don't have it. Finally, Amendment 10 is the final check on federal power. It confirms federalism by stating that any powers that the Constitution doesn't give to the federal government automatically belong or are reserved to the states or to the people themselves.